I want to clarify a little bit about fasting because sometimes that can even be confusing alone. There's intermittent fasting, I think, is what most people are familiar with. And when I say intermittent fasting, I think of something less than 48 hours. Maybe you're fasting 18 hours in the day or 14 hours in the day. And then you eat within a 10-hour window or an 8-hour window. And that's intermittent fasting. And some people even do that 2 days a week. They may eat significantly less calories, and then the other 5 days a week they eat normally. And there are some health benefits to that, some metabolic benefits, weight loss benefits, but prolonged fasting, something greater than 48 hours, is what I consider an extended period of time where your body can get into something really special called autophagy. Auto meaning self, phagy meaning eating. And that's our body's own ability to recycle. So that's a different type of fasting. You get into a totally different mechanisms and have so many more benefits. So your cells get to recycle and rejuvenate. There's insulin resistance that's improved. There's reduction in inflammation. So there's a whole host of other benefits that you tap into when you're doing a prolonged fast.
And there's a lot of science behind that, you're saying, showing the benefits of the prolonged
So,
fast.
yes, so many years, decades of research. In fact, our founder, Dr. Walter Longo, who's a professor at the University of Southern California, he lives there part of the time in Milan. When he was researching the benefits of fasting, it really started out looking at a population of people that from an outward appearance didn't seem to be protected from disease because they were more obese. You wouldn't think that they would have been protected from cardiovascular disease or heart disease. But what he found is they had a deficiency in something called IGF-1, insulin growth factor, and found that that was linked to aging. And one of the ways that we can get into autophagy is by not triggering different nutrient sensing pathways. And that's one of them. IGF-1, mTOR, PKA, all these new kind of names you may or may not have heard of. But when we don't trigger those nutrient sensing pathways, that's where we have this cellular turnover, rejuvenation, and the decreased inflammation. That's really important to improve our overall longevity.
Are there similar benefits to the common ones you hear about intermittent fasting, like you're saying, where it might be a 16-hour window, I guess, where you don't eat every day, that kind of thing, 5-2 diet, those, different diets? Do you still get similar sort of benefits out of those kinds of fasting that we hear about a lot?
You do get benefits, but not the cellular changes, not the bio-age reduction and things like that you do from prolonged fasting. So previously, prior to the new technology of the fasting mimicking diet, you could only get that with water fasting. Probably many of our ancestors, it just happened naturally, whether there was famine or different things going on, lack of access to food. But in our day and age, we can DoorDash anything. We probably sip on beverages too much all day long with sugar. We have access to all kinds of food. So we don't give our bodies the ability to do something that they innately know how to do, like a body's protective mechanism. We don't allow it to do. So because water fasting, and Nick, I don't know if you have done it before. I am not strong enough to do more than 40 hours of water fasting. It's challenging. There's not to mention the hunger, but there are safety concerns like gallstones and dehydration, muscle loss, low blood sugar, low blood pressure, that this kind of need for technology in that space. And that's why the fasting mimicking diet was created. So it's essentially the benefits of a prolonged fast, but you get 5 days of plant-based nourishment and your
Oh,
body recognize that you're eating. It's all about this kind of specific mechanism to allow you those benefits.
so you're not completely going cold turkey. Can you tell me exactly what you are actually having in that period?
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned, it's plant-based, gluten-free, dairy-free, but each day you are given this really well-organized box with 5 days inside. And on day one, which is really a transition day, so you go from burning glucose as your main source of fuel to burning fat on days 2, and then we'll talk more beyond days 2. But you get 2 soups during that day. You get honey nut bars that are kind of like a granola type of bar. There are olives, real olives. There's olive oil, there's almond kale crackers, there's herbal teas, there's even a little chocolate crisp. And we structure it like your typical meals that you eat. There's a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, and a snack. So you really don't feel like you're without. It's a decent amount of calories, I would say around 1100 or so, but it doesn't trigger these nutrient sensing pathways. So it's just enough nutrition. And then days 2 and beyond, you get into this fat burning mode. We do get to some ketosis, although that's not the point of the 5-day fast. It's really all about autophagy. And that begins on day 3. And then day 4 and 5, the cellular rejuvenation and renewal. So each of those days, you continue to get the soups and bars and olives. It just gets to be a little bit less after day 1. So you move from transitioning into days 2 through 5, and that's really where that autophagy begins.
Interesting, yeah, because that's what I was going to ask. That I thought there would probably be a lot of people who would just not be able to handle, and it might be dangerous, to be going for a long period without eating. So that makes more sense to do it in that way.
Yes, and it's very precise. A lot of people think it's about calorie restriction, but it's not. It's about very specific micronutrients. It's more intentional nutrition just to give you exactly what you need, but not too much. So your body's kind of flying under the radar, so to speak, so that it can go into this cleanup mode. But we cap it. We cap it at 5 days. And the reason that happens is because fasting is a stress on the body. But exercise is a stress on the body. A lot of things we do that we think of as generally healthy or stress, but we want to then fuel with good foods. We use cycles of the prolonged fasting coupled with good nutrition, more of kind of Mediterranean style nutrition. And of course, just overall good habits, strength training, movement, the importance of sleep and stress.
And how often would you be recommending doing that form of fasting?
Sure. I think it varies based on the individual, but if you're somebody that's generally healthy, I would say 3 or 4 times a year. In fact, that's about what I do, about 4 times a year. But if you have something specific that you are working on, a specific condition, let's say maybe some metabolic health issues, like in our metabolic health program, we have members that maybe they have prediabetes or maybe just obesity and they're looking to lose weight, or maybe they have high blood pressure. For those members, I would say probably 4 cycles of fasting. So a 5-day period each month for about 4 to 6 months to help improve those biomarkers. So it's just a 5-day period each month.
And then would you be recommending to people outside of that to be doing things like intermittent fasting? Because I feel like that is something that people find easy to apply to their day-to-day life. You'd recommend it?
I do. What I typically recommend is more of what I call a circadian fast. So it's fasting in a 12-hour window each day. So maybe for you, Nick, maybe you eat between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and that's it. And if you think about it, that's a pretty generous amount of time, having breakfast at 7, maybe having lunch at 12, dinner at 6, so you're done by 7. It seems pretty typical, but a lot of people tend to kind of back end, they don't eat as much in the beginning of the day, and then they kind of consume all their calories in the latter half of the day. And then they go to bed and they're just full and they're not using those calories as much. It's better to kind of spread things out and maybe even front load a little bit more and with a little less.
Can it still work if you were eating the exact same amount of calories, but in a window between you didn't start till 12 in the day and you're eating up until midnight? Because I know so many people, like you're saying, end up snacking at nighttime and eating later in the day, and it's a hard habit to break. So would you still get the same benefit if you're eating the exact same amount of calories in a 12-hour window, but in that second half of the day, and then just, you don't eat until midday every day?
I think it depends on when your activity is. If you're just not really moving much in the latter half of the day, and that's when you're consuming most calories, you're not burning as much calories. But if you're somebody, as you say, if you're eating at noon and then finishing your meals at midnight, so you're still up for a little bit longer, then maybe you are. Maybe everything's just shifted for you. But if you're waking up, let's say 6 or 7 a.m., and then not having anything until 12, and that's essentially when you're kind of breaking your nightly fast. And then you're just kind of consuming all those calories. And then, you're just pretty, let's say, sedentary the rest of the day. Might not have the exact same benefits as you would if you kind of were up and getting going and moving and then just more metabolically active.
Yeah, makes sense. And so ideally you don't want to be doing that, but it would be a better option than eating all day long and snacking at nighttime as well and overdoing the calories.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It would mean the world to me if you can subscribe to my channel, leave a like or comment, share it with your friends. It makes a world of difference. It doesn't cost anything, and it helps me to get this show bigger and better and bring on the guests and the production value that you ask for every single week. I couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you so much.